This meeting of the Buckinghamshire Milton Keynes Fire Authority Executive Committee. The meeting is being recorded and will be available on the YouTube channel. So item number 1, apologies for absence.
Councillors Darlington, Hall, Lambert and Walsh, and Councillor Fuller is substituting for Councillor Darlington, and Councillor Lambert and Walsh are online.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 2, minutes, and we'll do the minutes of the Executive Committee meeting on the 15th of November. Are there any questions or comments as to accuracy? Happy to approve. Okay, I'll take that as approved. Thank you very much. I'll do the consent forms in the exam session. Item number 3, matters arising from the previous meeting. So just on EX 33, which was the budget monitoring report, April 2023 to September 23. Just 3 things I want to cover here. So the first was there was an action for the chairman and chief fire officer to resend the letter outlining the case for preset flexibility to the new ministers. What actually happened in terms of the course of events, just so transparent to members, the advice that we received from, I think it was the NFCC, wasn't it?
Home Office.
Home Office, sorry, it was not to resend the letter, so we didn't. However, it then transpired through a member of Parliament having a meeting with the local government minister that our letter had not been seen by the new minister. So I then separately did decide to send the letter to the minister. So the new minister did receive our letter in the end. The second item, Chairman asked for a clear authorisation framework to be looked at, which triggers in-year growth bids were of magnitude important to membership the ability to look at it. We got an update on.
We haven't done it yet, but we haven't had any more in-year bids this year, so that's something we'll put in place for next year.
Okay,
so make sure that's clear to members.
Thank you. And then I think, Mark, you want to just clarify a point you made at a previous meeting as well on that item.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So at the last meeting, I've asked a question around, based off our HMICFRS report, where we'd looked at kind of our spend per head of population versus the average. A member asked me, how much would we need to increase our budget by to come up to the average spend per population? I gave a figure off the top of my head, which was incorrect. It was too high. The figure I had in my head was to bring us up to Merseyside's spend, because their report came out on the same day as ours, so I compared us to them. And I said 10 to 12 million. Actually, in terms of bringing us up to the same spend as Merseyside, that was a slight underestimate. That'd actually be nearer £14 million, which would have to go on our budget. To bring us up to the average, we'd have to increase our budget by only, and I use the term loosely, about £5.4 million. So just, I thought it's worth correcting the record.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, disclosure of interest. Are there any pecuniary, disclosable pecuniary interest members wish to declare? In the room, take that as a no. Thank you very much. Item number 5, questions in accordance with Standing Order SOA 7.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Which moves us to item number 6, Thames Valley Fire Control Service contracts. I won't do it in charge, I'll just hand straight over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so this patient relates to approving some contract variations and extensions within the Thames Valley Fire Control Service. Members will be aware that the Joint Committee for the Thames Valley Fire Control received these patients for approval, but the Insular Authority agreement requires them to seek respective approval from each authority. So within the appendices, you'll see that the reports that went to the Joint Committee and the recommendations were around a variation of the maintenance and support contract for the IX hardware refresh, which is the kind of a telephony system within the control room, quite integral to the running of it. And also around extending the contingency tool handling services with security services. And then the third piece was around a contract for WITWAM to provide a video monitoring solution. And you'll see within the papers that that one is kind of a retrospective approval because of the operational imperative to have that system in place for the functioning of the control room, which hopefully is explained well enough in the papers for you. But yes, so just seeking approval from the Commission, please.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Anderson?
I guess it's because we're looking at retrospective approval. I totally get the reasons for doing it. It's just a question of the process. But is this the accepted process when something urgent needs to be actioned or money spent before a joint committee meeting, and then obviously come to us after that?
Yeah.
Is that what normally happens to sort of urgent items? I'm just wondering whether we should have a different process for that doesn't involve us retrospectively agreeing something months and months after it's been done.
No, it's a really good question, and since I've been kind of senior responsible for fire control, this is the second time that there's been kind of an operational imperative to get something done. I suppose for reassurance in terms of contracts award and all of the procurement rules and things, that's all well above board, which Royal Berkshire do as part of their as the contracting authority. But it's that authority agreement piece which requires me to come out, and sometimes the timings don't line up. So I think it's probably something for the future agreement when we go in, when we come around to that decision for what we're going to do with the control room from 2030 onwards. That does seem like quite a long way off, but it will soon come round, and all the authorities are mindful of this. I think it's something we probably need to look at.
Yeah, it does feel like joint committee is the sticking point, because obviously we meet more frequently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably something we can look at. Well, if you're already looking at it, that's great.
Yeah, so good point. If you can take an action for me to make sure it's put on the agenda of the next steering committee, just to discuss with the other authorities. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. My question, aside from that, relates to section 3 of the report and what we note here. I'm having sat on this committee, on the Fire Service Control Service Committee for some years. I was surprised to read 3.2 about the pay awards. Budgeted for 4%, turned out to be 5%, then budgeted for 5%, then 7%, and now for this year we're budgeting for 5%. I'm wondering if they have prudently put another 2% to one side, because they clearly seem to be out every year for that. It's just a flag as a concern to us that I know that they're in the national negotiations in terms of pay. Whether, Chairman, you had a view about where they were in terms of the negotiations for 24-25. I don't suppose that actually started yet, I would imagine. But whether 5% felt like it was realistic, or that's just what RBS, who do that on our behalf, are thinking.
Do you want to cover?
I was going to perhaps defer to finance, because that relates specifically to the budget paper that went through for 2025.
Yeah. So well, let me have a stab first, and then so I think if you'll recall our own assumptions for the previous year. So obviously what you've got in 3.2 is the consequence of the NJC decision that was a 2-year settlement. And you'll recall that our own assumptions were also below that final agreement. And I think that's just, like all authorities and services, they were making some assumptions, and because of the fact we were all trying to avoid industrial action, we ended up with a higher pay award than any of us had anticipated. I think my personal view is that it is a prudent, particularly when you look at CPI and headline inflation, that 5% is probably a prudent assumption for the following year. But it's an inexact science when you're in the middle of a pay negotiation. We won't know the outcome of that until much later this year. So
yeah, in terms of the process, I don't think the Grey Book one has kicked off in earnest this year. Yeah, there is a national advisors meeting next week. I think that's the first one that's scheduled. For context, the Gold Book one has been agreed, which is effective from 1st of January 2024. That was agreed at 3%. So that may set a kind of a benchmark figure in terms of expectations. I don't know, but I'll keep members up to date on where we are with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions, comments? No. Okay, we're being asked to do 3 things. Firstly, that Royal Berkshire Fire Authority be authorised to progress a variation of the maintenance and support contract, including the ICCS hardware refresh between Royal Berkshire Fire Authority and SSS Public Safety Limited, in line with the latest estimated value of the new contract value of £1,240,977, subject to annual inflationary uplifts. Recommendation 2, that RBFA be authorised to extend the contract between RBFA and Securitas Security Services, which I assume is what SSS is, UK Limited, for contingency call handling services for 1 year from the 30th of April 2024 to the 30th of April 2025, being the final extension option of the current contract. And thirdly, the decision by RBFA to extend the contract between RBFA and Whitwam Limited for the supply and support of video monitoring solution in the TVFCS control room from the 1st September 2023 to the 1st September 2028, with options to extend to 10th of April 2030 be ratified. Are members happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Great, thank you very much.
Agreed.
Moves us on to item number 7, which is the medium-term financial plan. Councillor Walsh, do you want to introduce it?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, there's a lot of detail in the packs that have gone out to members, and I'll be relying on Chief Finance Officer and Arif to take us through, to take us through the finer detail. But these are executive recommendations to the authority at our meeting next week, composing 3 elements: the report of the Chief Finance Officer, which is to be noted, the council tax precept to 79.46 for a Band D property, which is equivalent to the increase of 4 pence per week, and the revenue budget as set out in Appendix 1, and the capital programme as set out in Appendix 2. I am aware early this morning, Chairman, there may be some revised figures coming through thanks to some NNDR information from our partner councils, but I'm sure Asif can take us through those in detail. Thank you, Chairman.
So just before I hand over to Asif, can I just check whether those appendices have been sent to Councillor Walsh and Councillor Lambert? If you could,
You just need the copy.
yeah, if you could just send them across as well. So yeah, we have got some revised papers in front of us. Asif.
Good morning, members. I'm presenting the 24-25 MTFP for your consideration. I will take the report as read and focus on an update I would like to provide today. As you will be aware, the funding figures in the existing report were estimated. There were provisional figures that were provided to us. Since then, we have received the final settlement figures and the NNDR funding figures this week, and therefore I've revised tables Appendix 1 and 2, and that's why you'll see a revised copy in front of you. There should hopefully be 3 pages there, and I'll take you through some of those key changes. The first change is the key expenditure budget has increased from 38.2 million to 39.4 million, an increase in the region of around 1.2 million. This is due to the increase in employer pension contributions in the firefighter pension scheme. To mitigate these additional costs, the service has been provided with a fire pensions grant in the region of 1.1 million. For future years, a reduction in this grant, similar to the pressure we have seen in previous pension grants, has been forecast. The settlement funding assessment for 24-25 has also been revised downwards from 10.5 million to just over 10 million, a reduction of just over 400k, following receipts of updated NNDR figures earlier this week. For 24-25, this reduction is offset with a one-off grant of just under 600,000 received as part of the minimum funding guarantee. For future years, the SFA forecasts have been updated to reflect this reduction in NNDR funding. Previous figures used were an estimate, and more accurate figures are provided when billing authorities confirm them, and this is only after the 31st of January, and that's why we received those figures earlier this week. The previous pension grant line of 1.2 million has now been merged into the SFA line on a flat cash basis, as this grant going forward will be included as part of the SFA funding stream. This brings the total SFA figure for 24-25 to just under 11.3 million. The council tax surplus, we saw a slight increase, so it was revised upwards from 94k to 101k, an increase of 7k. The services grant allocation also saw a slight increase in funding by 3k, and that's been revised upwards. Taking into account all these changes, the revenue contribution to capital budget in Appendix 1A and 1B for 2024-25 to 2028-29 has been revised in order to balance the budget. Total usable reserves as at the end of 2028-29 are now forecast to be just under 8 million, a reduction of 2 million from the figures that you would have seen in the original paper. Going through the pages now, obviously Appendix 1A is the revised budget that I've just discussed. In terms of Appendix 2, hopefully you won't see much change. I do apologise when I was printing. It's printed in 2 colours, so you won't be able to see it, but I want to assure members that the capital programme is actually no different to what you've seen in the MTFP report. It's exactly the same. The only thing is how our revenue contribution to reserves have reduced over the MTFP. The last page I just want to bring to everyone's attention is the revised reserves forecast. So again, the colours are quite similar, but I want you to focus on kind of the dark red and the light red. The light red at the bottom is what we're projecting at present. So we're saying our reserves are probably going to be in the region of around £8 million at the end of 28-29. I must stress at this point that we are being fairly prudent in terms of our funding future projections. So we are assuming that we're not going to receive any USAR grant that's in the region of around £820,000 a year. We're also assuming that our pension grant funding will reduce, and we've reduced that in the region of around £250,000. Again, if in future years those are fully funded, you could easily see our reserves be in the region of around 12 million. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's very difficult to forecast what our reserves are going to be in 5 years' time, but I'd be quite confident to kind of say, subject to nothing else materially changing in terms of prefect flexibility and NNDR funding, we'd hope to see our reserves to be in the region of 8 million and 12 million pounds. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions? Councillor Christensen?
Just as a percentage of overall budget, what is there a recommended level that we should look to have for a while?
Yeah, I don't know the recommended level off the top of my head, but I know what ours is. So currently, for the current year, it's around the 30% mark. And our reserves balance is 30% of our net budget requirement. That would drop to about 18%. I think sector-wide at 2023 was around 43%. But Mark, do you know the exact?
Yeah, but there is no recommended figure. As it said, kind of the sector average last time we did a sector-wide survey is 43%, which seems very high. On the amended graph that we've got here, we've put the lines at 15, 10 and 5% on there. If it's above 15%, I'm fairly comfortable. If it got down to 10, I'd be nervous. If it got down to 5, I'd be extremely worried. So kind of somewhere between 15, 20% seems a comfortable level to be at in terms of a good balance between having something to smooth out impacts of the unknown and uncertainty, having some money to invest, etc., versus not hoarding too much.
I think it's fair to say, isn't it? I mean, we obviously had a long discussion last year about where we need to get the reserves position to, and it's, you know, obviously in a much healthier position than it previously been. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that one of the reasons why the sector struggles sometimes to convince ministers of the precept flexibility requirement is because of that sector median of reserves, which is frustrating given we're at the lower end of all of that. But that is one of the challenges, isn't it?
Historically, it has been a major focus. I think less so in more recent years because the trend has started to come down nationally in terms of reserves as authorities are starting to spend them. But yeah, we are at the lower end of reserves figures for fire authorities.
Just, I would echo what you just said. In other places, I end up having budget discussions where the conversation is often around reserves, and you know, a prudent authority has reserves, as you say, Mark, to smooth the spending curve. When I hear ministers, you know, saying, "Oh well, you can't have precept flexibility because you have reserves," because that's we're not stupid. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there are some authorities who've got particularly high reserve levels. I mean, that's the median we're talking about. So, you know, I think the challenge for us is that we need to make sure that, you know, I don't think we should be building up significant reserves. I think we've got good headroom. We need to make sure we're using that for transformation, which we're going to talk about. But you're right, we need to run it prudently. And it's fair to say, you know, over the last sort of couple of years, we've been looking at a more challenging reserves position, and we've got it into a much better place. So it's a good. When do we think that the USAR funding timetable will kick off?
There's ongoing discussions in the background all the time. It feels more positive now than it did this time last year, but I wouldn't like to put any certainty on it, and that's why we've shown two positions. I'm hoping that we'll still get some funding. It may not be exactly the same, so they may change the configuration of the teams, but I suspect the two extremes we've shown between no USAR funding and USAR funding, we're probably going to be somewhere between the two of those, I would hope.
So just to add on that, in terms of the expenditure budgets for USAR, we haven't dropped that in our modelling. So obviously, if there was a change in the funding, then how USAR may look in the future may also change as well. So there is a bit of flexibility there. So
thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three questions. I'll start with the USAR one, if that's okay, because when we look at the papers, page 48, I think it says, you know, we're basically preparing for the end of that grant 817,000 per annum. It's because it's USAR is interlinked with our day-to-day services now. It's not a standalone service. That will change the profile of our organisation. In terms of risk management, I just needed to ask, and I don't know if it's Stuart that would answer this one, but whether we have started to do that assessment about what that looks like, because we'd have to re-profile the service, regardless of what the government ever decide to do next. If if they don't do USAR, we need to be prepared for that. The second question, it's just, I think it might be just how I've read the figures, but on page 42, it reads like there is a service grant drop of £406 million to the sector, and we're going to get 33,000 of it. Is that the correct understanding of that one? And the last point is item B, the precept, where we said precept 7946. Again, if I read this paper correct, that's just under 3%, 2.98%. for Band D. I just think I would have liked to have seen those numbers in there as a comment, because that helped me see where we were as projection as one of the lowest precepting authorities, and that was 4p a week. Again, I'm just going to lay out the table like I do every year. So frustrating that the government hasn't given us precept flexibility and where we sit in that whole league table. So thank you, Chairman, for writing in again, as successive chairman have done over my 11 years in the service, but for precept flexibility. Immensely frustrating that we're in this position still, but grateful we got that flexibility for those 2 years that we did.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, so if I take those in turn, so the USAR, yeah, we are looking at different permutations. What we've done in terms of risk management is we're getting the funding for this year. That funding is going into a USAR reserve, and that gives us a flexibility. So worst case, we do lose it. That gives us time to start unpicking some of the things that you mentioned, Councillor Lambert, around how it is also intertwined with Aylesbury, there'll be paid protection, all sorts of things like that. Best case, we do get the funding. That gives us a pot of money to invest in making sure that USAR capability is the best it possibly can be. So there's been some really positive discussions we've had with Westcott Venture Park. We've already got a kind of a large scale training rubble pile down there, which the Home Office we've showed, and they're really impressed with what we've done with the money we have down there. And there's potential to do so much more, and that will give us that money to do that transformation, to make sure that if we have got USAR for the next 10, 15 years, it's one of the best USAR teams in the country. In terms of the services grant, you have read that correctly. There is a huge reduction in the services grant this year, which is obviously came as a big disappointment to us. We'd forecast it would go down by 50%, and we thought we were being prudent there. It's gone down by about 84%. What has happened, though, is there's been additional funding made available for what they've called the minimum funding guarantee. So we benefited from that as a fire authority. So that has kind of more than offset that reduction, which has been positive overall. But that was due to a last minute change between the provisional settlement and the final settlement, but that's increased significantly. And in terms of the precepts that you mentioned, yes, it is 2.98%. If you look in Appendix 3 on page 54 of the packs, it does set out.
I did find it. It just would have been useful to have it as the right up there in the decision.
Oh, sorry, in the recommendations. Okay, yeah. Right. So I hear where you're coming from. Apologies.
Because I think that's the one thing that everybody literally looks at every time, or they don't necessarily know that it's 4p a week, but they look at the percentage and they kind of value add it. Like, is that good value or no value? But in my humble opinion, it's still too low for what it is for the service that we run and things we need to do. But it was just it's a preference thing. I prefer to see those numbers up front for transparency as a simple place to look at where we're putting the figures. I understand also shock horror. That the government did reduce it by £406 million. They clearly didn't think about local government services when they were doing that. I think somebody fell on a calculator and just decided to remove all those numbers. But thank you very much for the assurance that it wasn't wrong.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments from members? No. Okay. So before we move to recommendations, can I just thank officers for the work on the plan? I know it's always a huge amount of work with lots of moving parts right up to the last minute. So appreciate the hard work in putting it together. So members are being asked to approve the following recommendations. that the report and statement of the Chief Finance Officer, see Section 8 of Annex A, be noted. That a council tax precept of £79.46 for a Band D equivalent property, which is equal to an increase of approximately 4 pence per week. And to note the conversation we had, a 2.98% increase. And the revenue budget as set out in Appendix 1 be approved. And the capital programme as set out in Appendix 2 be approved. The members happy to agree those? Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Moves on to item number 8, which is 2025-2030 service planning update. I'm doing the right thing. So this is just members' awareness. This is just recommending a small change to the timetable that we've set out for the community risk management plan. And Mark, I think you're just going to quickly explain it.
Yeah, so probably not much more to add than that, Chairman. So on the 7th of December 2022, we presented the timetable for the community risk management plan for getting that approved by members. We did at the time note when we presented that one of the risks to delivery to that timetable was competing pressures, which would divert resources from that to other projects. One of the big competing pressures we had was, you all know, we had HMICFRS came in and we got told we're going into enhanced monitoring. That obviously consumed a lot of the same time and resources that would have been used to deliver the original timetable for CRMP. So we're just asking members to approve a revised timetable for CRMP. It will still come to members in December 2024, so still well in advance of the implementation date of the 1st of April 2025. And there's no plans at the moment to delay the corporate plan any further than the original timetable, so that will come February 2025. Again, still well in advance of when it would start in April 2025. So we're just asking members to approve this small extension to the timeline.
Any questions from members? Okay, I would be happy to agree the recommendation that the changes to the timing of the 2025-2030 planning process be approved.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Okay, which moves us to item number 9, response to the local provisional local government finance settlement 2024-25. Councillor Walsh, do you want to introduce it?
Thank you, Chairman. This is a report that to the consultation that be noted. Like you, I'd just like to pass my thanks on to the officers involved for their submission and good work in this. Thank you.
Mark.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Walsh. This report has been brought to members to note because of the timescales of the consultation. We've already had to submit the response after discussing it with the Chairman and lead member. So it's been brought for information. The key points we've raised in this letter, I think we've probably discussed most of them as part of item number 7 around the medium-term financial plan. So we expressed our disappointment that the preset flexibility to raise up to £5 wasn't available this year to fire authorities. We expressed our disappointment about the large reduction in the services grant of 84%. We emphasised that fire and rescue services will see the lowest increase in core spending power of all classes of local authorities. At the time, it was 4.6%. That has increased slightly now following the final settlement. And we also mentioned that 31 out of the 44 fire and rescue authorities had hit the funding threshold guarantee, which just indicated how little other funding streams were increasing in order that many services had hit what was essentially a funding floor. But happy to take any questions members may have on any other parts of the letter.
Any questions, comments from members? No, we're happy to note the consultation. Thank you very much. Item number 10, the paper that I always look forward to the most every year, the Prudential Code, Prudential Indicators and Minimum Revenue Provision, which Councillor Walsh will introduce in some detail.
Well, I don't know about some detail, Chairman. It's a pretty complex piece of work that the officers have completed. But this is to approve the recommendations for submission to the Fire Authority next week for the prudential indicators for 24-25. Obviously, this year we took the decision to repay a substantial element of debt. early as the opportunity had arisen. That decision was taken in consultation with the chairman and myself as lead member. I also think if you were to look at page 91 of the briefing pack, to look at our level of debt from PW Public Works Loan Board is among the lower of the varying authorities, and obviously in the medium term financial plan we are forecasting our debt going down significantly over the next 5 years. It's a complex piece of work, so there again I would like to pass my thanks on to Marcus in particular for steering this through, but happy for the officers to take any questions on this complex piece of work, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Marcus.
Councillor Walsh has stolen most of my thunder, so he's read my script, so it's good. But just to add to that, the potential code itself was established to ensure that the capital investment plans are affordable, prudent, and sustainable, and that the Treasury management decisions are taken in accordance with good professional practice. The potential indicators themselves presented here that the current plans for capital investment meet the criteria and present an acceptable level of risk to the authority. The minimum revenue provision is a statutory charge to the general fund, which is a revenue budget, which ensures that the authority has sufficient cash balances to repay borrowing on maturity, to reducing the refinancing risk. As Councillor Walsh has mentioned, we're able to repay a loan early this financial year, which equated to £627,000, and that was at a discount of £46,000, so it's less than, we pay less back, which is good. This paper also supports the MTFP, which Asset presented today, and within that there are no additional plans for borrowing throughout the MTFP. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No. So could I just, I'm not sure I'd taken this in previous papers, just explain the finance lease at Gerrard's Cross under 4.1. Is that?
That's where we have the options on housing for the day food, so put staff in there. It's essentially accounted for as a finance lease, so we have to put the capital finance requirements aside to make sure that's covered each year.
Right, okay.
Very technical thing, but essentially that's what it is.
Thank you. Good. So Executive Committee is being asked to approve firstly the prudential indicators for 2024-25, and secondly the minimum revenue provision policy statement. We're happy to do so.
Brilliant.
Great, thanks very much. Moves us to item number 11, budget monitoring report. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chairman. As in previous updates on the budget remains on track with a forecast underspend. All officers involved should be congratulated on the prudent financial monitoring of the authority's budget. Obviously, in addition to the forecast underspend of a little over £250,000, we have had 2 rounds of in-year growth bids, which are detailed in the pack, which I think you would agree, Chairman, as part of our transformation, over £500,000, nearly £600,000 being invested in priorities determined by the senior management team is fantastic, on top of the underspend that we're projecting. So my congratulations to all officers involved, and I look forward to seeing the results of the investment in the transformation pot.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. To be honest, there isn't much more to add apart from just highlighting the underspend. Obviously, is at 274k at present. Obviously, there's a number of factors that resulted in the underspend. We were obviously under-established for the first 6 months of the year in terms of our operational establishment, but also some really good stuff that the finance team have been doing, in particular Marcus, in terms of treasury and so forth. You know, we're projecting over 550k additional interest income, which have kind of supported it. The only thing I will kind of caveat, and it will probably be a positive, we are getting more recent data in cross-border and bank now, because it's kind of done in arrears, and we are seeing drops in our forecasts than what we previously planned. So I'm quite hopeful that our projections will probably be even better. But this is all linked to our establishment being at over 300. So there are signs clearly showing that establishment being over 300 is having a really good financial impact in terms of reliance on bank and cross-border. Again, those details will be finalised at the point we do the outcome report. But we are definitely seeing reduction in costs for what we had previously forecasted. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions Okay, in which case, can I just ask for, on the whole time, sorry, page 104, on the whole time establishment road, just the lever number, my recollection is that we have been working on an assumption of an average of 3 levers per month. Have been our previous assumptions. When I look at this, it seems to be suggesting that lever rate is slowing. So could you just take us through what assumptions we're now using on lever rates?
Yeah, so we were originally looking at 3 levers, and then we re-looked at it, as we do carry on forecasting, then we looked at 2, and then we're looking at 1, because we were finding that actually there weren't as many levers as we were expecting, so we did change it 3 to 2 to 1. And we have got a few levers kind of coming up, but that's the assumptions that we're looking at.
But I guess that's the point. So effectively, what we're seeing is a slowing down in the attrition rate, which is excellent news.
As I say, there are a few that are leaving, but we keep that under review at times.
Okay, great. And just in terms of the sort of run rate of recruitment, then we're confident that because at the moment we've got, I know some way out, but 26, 27. Obviously, we start to see a sort of reduction in our headcount. We're confident that the pipeline of recruitment is strong enough in the.
Yeah, so the current cohort that we're going through at the minute, cohort 12, we were originally looking to take on 18, but we've amended that to 6. We are keeping it under review, looking at the levers, and we've also moved the start date back from June to September as well. It also means that we've been able to do some positive engagement. So we are keeping that under review, the workforce planning agreement.
Right. So, and I'm sure I speak for the members when we've been in stations over the last few weeks, there's a really strong message coming from firefighters that the difference they're seeing in the numbers. So what it's enabling them to do, which is great to see. Good. There are no other questions. Upside down. We are being asked to note the provisional outturn forecast authority as of the 31st December 2023. I'm happy to do so. So as a yes. Good. That moves us on to item number 12. Update on the HMI CFRS action plan and progress. Just before I hand over to Anne-Marie, yesterday Louise and I attended the Fire Performance Oversight Group, which was the first time that we'd been there. First, I just want to put on record, I thought both Louise and Mick, the Chief Officer and Deputy Chief Officer, did a superb job at the meeting and setting out the action and the progress. Won't go into all the detail, but it was a very good session, a very supportive session. We had representatives from NFCC, Home Office, Local Government Association, all offering support. And I think the headline feedback was that the inspectorate was really impressed with the way that the services responded to the report and the progress was being made. And they explicitly also noted the Fire Authority's support in terms of the transformation budget. So all in all, I think it was a good session. Don't there's anything you want to add?
No, I think just they noted the good progress we've made already. So that they acknowledged there's been a huge amount of work to get to the position we're in. And whilst we remain in the engaged process at this stage, which was absolutely as we expected to be, they were really pleased with the direction of travel. I think were very complimentary about the fact that it was clear we were focused, had a really good plan in place, and that we knew what we needed to do next. So no, I think, as you said, Chair, overall it was a really good meeting, and I think we demonstrated our ability to come out of engaged at some point in the future. So
I think it's worth just also probably one point. Clearly, what we'll need to demonstrate is sustained and sustainable progress. So, I don't think we should expect that it will be a quick thing.
No.
But it's a good challenge for us to step to. Am I handing over to you, Anne-Marie?
Yes, thank you. I did my last bit first, so I'm finished. So in October 2023, we received our 2023-2025 round 3 HMIC inspection report. The round 3 report was presented to the Extraordinary Fire Authority in October with input from HMI Buckinghamshire.
The action plan was developed and submitted to HMIC FRS on the 15th of November and presented to the Fire Authority on the 6th of December. This report shows a high-level progress against the action plan, with 4 actions now showing as complete as at the end of December 2023. A more detailed update will be presented to the Overview and Audit Committee and then up to the Fire Authority. In November 2023, we were informed that we would be entering the supportive engage process. The focus of the engage process is to assist us in finding ways to improve and resolve the identified causes of concern and provide a better service for our public. To ensure focus on the HMIC action plan and to support the engage process, the service has set up a HMIC FRS improvement board chaired by the Chief Fire Officer, and the terms of reference can be found in Appendix 1. Alongside delivering our action plan, preparing for the Fire Performance Oversight Group, we are also starting to focus on our HMIC FRS revisit in May 2024. Officers have continued to engage with a wide range of key partners and peers to provide scrutiny over the last 8 months, and we thank them for their continued support. This is quite a summary of an update, but yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just one area just for clarity? So I noticed some press comment on the progress on the ED&I actions, and specifically that 12 of them have not been started. Could you just provide a bit more context for members and indeed for the public watching this around why that is the case and what those, what that relates to?
Yeah, I mean, so basically when we put the plan together, we needed to map out that we couldn't do everything kind of like straight away. So we wanted to make sure that it was realistic. So we put the dates in, we discussed what those kind of look like. And although some of the things haven't started, kind of some of the work towards it has started. So I'm happy that there will be progress made and that they will be completed. Some of the dates are quite long as well. So there's some quite short dates and some quite long dates, but I am content that we will be, we will meet those actions.
So just thank you. And just to be, so we can all be really clear, where it says not yet started, that doesn't mean that they are delayed. It's just that they are not start dates. And I think that's just a really important bit of context.
And it doesn't mean that we haven't started any work on there, but there's not enough to kind of, really report on at this point.
And I recall from the action plan that that effectively we sort of prioritised the more significant actions up front to make the biggest difference. So,
Chair, can I just add to that, just to support? I think one of the things we have recognised there are a lot of action within that action plan, and I think when we've looked at it again, because we've literally been through it line by line, I think some of those actions that look like they haven't been started can actually be consolidated into other subheadings because we have done the work. I think we just haven't recognised or haven't included it in there. So some of you will know that very kindly the council have given us a secondee for 1 day a month to come and help us consolidate some of those plans. So I'm actually really comfortable that there aren't actions that haven't been started. We just haven't really pulled them all into one place together sufficiently. So the next time we come and present to you, it will look a far more positive picture. I think the other thing, again, which you've just alluded to, Chair, is, we have been given the opportunity with some transformation money to look to put in a more full-time post to support some of the EDI and the people and culture work that we want to do. And again, I'm hoping we can present that to you at a future meeting in terms of progress.
Yeah, and I think it's worth just noting the Overview and Audit Committee have the responsibility for the detailed oversight of the action plan. And I think you've got a meeting shortly, haven't you, with which you'll be doing. So. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McCain.
So you went in to see HMI yesterday. When's your next
June?
So it's 3 months. 4 months. Or, yeah.
So inspection back in May the 20th, the HMI will come out and do another 3-day inspection, I think it is. And then we will then again present back to a POG round about June. I think they're just confirming dates at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it really was a supportive discussion.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I thought at the beginning we were talking about monthly meetings. That's why I was.
Yeah, no,
that's actually very positive that they don't want to see you, Nick and Louise. Can't they wait until after the next visit?
We do have milestone meetings, so they do check in with us regularly just to make sure we're on track. But in terms of inspections and formalised meetings, no, it would just be the next step of the BG.
Any other questions, comments? No. Okay. Are we happy to note the update? Thank you very much. Moves us to item number 13, our usual performance management update. I'll just hand straight over to Craig.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, thank you. So one thing I'll start off by saying is this is quarter two, so this is July to September in theory. So we're quite a bit behind where we'd normally present this to you, just due to the timeline of meetings. We can discuss the comments there, but I would say we're already on Q3 and we have that data as well. So I can try and give you a bit of an update if there's something you do have a question with. Other than that, the report itself is the usual report. We've added the highlighted measures as usual. Overall, I would say there's nothing worrying in the report other than, well, not worrying. I'd say there are some good news stories which we tried to highlight. Two highlighted measures. The first one being the number of accidental dwelling fires and being the lowest we've had on record. And then the second one is our fire safety audits. And the reason we've highlighted that is to try and show our actions going forward and how we're trying to improve the numbers we do and why. So that they're the two highlighted, both good news stories and across the board. And it's been a lot more positive than we've had sometimes in the past. So other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? In which case, I'll ask two, if I may. So just again, so we get it on record, so I did ask this in a separate meeting. If you turn to G108, which is page 162, which is appraisal and objectives completion, that looks like a not great position, but I think the more up-to-date position is more positive. So can you just share with members what the current
yeah. So you're right. In quarter two, it weren't the best. So appraisals went up to 86% for appraisals, but objectives set for this year, so 23-24, is now 93%, or it was at the end of December. So that's back on track where we needed to be.
Right, thank you. And then just again to make sure that we stay on track with it, trying to find just an update on the carbon emissions target and baseline.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're introducing a new piece of facilities management software from the 1st of April this year, and it will allow us to monitor it on a regular basis through the system. So I'll be able to bring regular updates to members on that rather than having to do something a year in arrears each time. So hopefully you'll start to see that interest financial year.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. You walked through my brain for you on the question about appraisals. Glad that that's gone up. Another question is page 152. It's good to see that we've got 14 on-call recruitments waiting training. Do we know when that training is going to take place and we can have them in service? Also, on 152, same page, is the balance of whole-time staff. I didn't think it gave us, I'm just going to try and find it now, just scrolling too many papers. Narrative there for 152, so this is, sorry, I'm going backwards on myself. I apologise, Chairman, had it open. Right, so firstly, when are we going to get the 14 trained on-call firefighters? And with the firefighter numbers at 93%, with the current target, I would imagine that the availability of our firefighters has been adjusted or will be adjusted. I would have liked an update number on that, if I'm honest with you, because that's something we have to track constantly on the back of HMI.
So, oh, sorry.
Sorry, actually, one more question is on page 144, prison fires. Now, we can't help where fires are deliberately started or when there are accidental fires. I understand that we're a responsive service, but where it comes to the prison service, are we, and I suppose this comes down to our risk management plan 25 to 30, which we referred to earlier, that is there a way of working with them that helps reduce prison fires that isn't evident in this report here?
Okay, so if I ask Annie, you take the training one, and then who's best placed to do availability, Simon? Okay, excellent.
Okay, so in terms of alongside the whole time recruitment, we have 13 new on-call starters who commenced, actually just commenced. So they're going to different stations across the service. And in addition to that, there is another on-call intake plan to commence in August 2024.
Thank you.
Brilliant. That's really good news. Sing it from the rooftops and tell the world, please. That's brilliant.
Simon.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the prisons, it's a little bit early to say, but we have, as a result of seeing this and separating out this measure and focusing on it, we've engaged with the prisons and done quite a lot of work with them. It's early days, but we have actually started to see a significant reduction in the number of incidents at the prison. I want to see that sustained over the next couple of months, but in future reports, I'm really hopeful that we'll see a significant improvement there because of some of the measures that we've put in place.
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, you just mentioned one in here is Woodhill, I think it is, but I think there are 4 prisons in our patch.
Yeah.
So
Woodhill was the focus because that was where the concentration of incidents were, and that's where our work has been with them. But we have early signs of a significant improvement.
And then it was availability and on-call firefighters.
Yeah, so in terms of on-call availability, again, I think we'll start to see an improving picture. It's not where we want it to be yet. Over the last 18 months, we've clearly focused on whole-time recruitment to get those numbers up. I think we've got a bit of breathing space now to really focus on those on-call stations where we can recruit to. It's really good news to get 14 through and started now, and we can really focus on that recruitment this year.
And I think just for members, if you've not seen it, there's a number of on-call firefighter events that are being promoted across the service on social media. So if we can, as members, play our part in making sure that we're promoting that and sharing that as well. So I saw every station had put something out yesterday, I think it was. So again, let's play our part in helping on that. Any other questions on performance management, Councillor McLean?
I was just a comment on the on-call. I think I woke up this morning and looked at the first 3 posts are on call and you come to have a try and so on. And great to hear what Anne was saying, that we've got another intake starting in August. Close to my heart, I live next or near an on-call station, which 2 or 3 years ago, it was very difficult. Now I'm much more positive and around the community as well. So it's great. It's great. The communication is really working.
Thank you. I'm actually good about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And whilst we're on social media, actually, can I just also put on record, I think the National Apprenticeship Week social media has been superb this week. So please do feed that back to the team as well. Really good.
I'll just come in. It's probably worth noting that that's coming from an apprentice. So it's really good to know. Yeah, to Annie.
Good. Yeah, who was the star of yesterday's post, I thought. So, okay, are members happy to note the performance management report? Great, thank you. So moves us to item number 14, exclusion of public and press. To consider excluding the public and press representatives from the meeting by virtue of paragraph 1 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as the minutes contains information relating to any individual, and paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as the minutes contain information relating to the financial or business affairs of a person, including the authority. And on these grounds, it is considered the need to keep information exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Are members happy to agree with that? Thank you very much. Stop recording, Chairman.